Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. While you're at it, make sure if you're a YouTube user, click the bell to enable notifications so they let you know every time a new episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast goes live. Make sure you follow us on our Discord community, Pro Wrestling, and be sure to stop by www.tsj101sports.com. The Pro Wrestling Podcast is the official wrestling podcast of TSJ Sports, but they host content for all the major sports. Check them out today, www.tsj101sports.com. Gentlemen, are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create your wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shoutouts like Mike and Lansdale, then don't forget to swing over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast and sign up today. We have loyalty rewards. Any $15 a month contributor gets to co-host an episode of one of our live shows with myself, and our $7.50 a month contributors get entered into a drawing to do so as well. Hello everybody, welcome to this live episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. We'll be taking your questions, your comments, anything you want to touch on in the chat feature of whatever streaming service you use to get the show. Make sure you put your name in there so we can give you credit for who you are. When you contribute, you deserve to be recognized. And if you are a little shy, don't want to go live, that's cool. We have the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160. Give us your questions, your comments, concerns, anything you'd like us to look at, and we'll try to get to that in a future episode. This week, got to give a shout out to Nick. Nick requested that we're going to do a review episode that will be posted as a Patreon exclusive, reviewing the March 25th, 1996 episode of Monday Night Raw. We'll get that up to you very soon, Nick. If you have special requests, make sure you send them to us either through the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line or pop onto one of our other social media networks and let us know what you'd like to see on the show. Don't forget, head over to the homepage of the Pro Wrestling Podcast, www.frowrestling.com. It's where you can preview whatever topics are coming to the show, and it's a great way to come up with the questions that you want us to address in a future episode. It helps make you be part of the show. Let's face it, our fans are our number one driving force. Tonight, lots to talk about. We're going to start off with one of the things that, for me personally, as a huge wrestling fan, anybody who's known me for any length of time knows that I have eat, slept, and breathed the wrestling world since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. And WWE has been a focal point of that adoration for pretty much my whole life. I can remember being 4 years old and going to see wrestling for the very first time with my dad at the Philadelphia Spectrum. I've loved it ever since. So I've got a little bit of a prejudice, a bias, so to speak, towards WWE programming, even though I know, you know, we all know that WWE shows have not always been the best produced nor the best written in recent years. That being said, we're all looking forward to the debut of All Elite Wrestling's weekly television show. It should be incredible. However, I take a little bit of issue with comments that came out this week from Kenny Omega, who put out there, he was very, very candid about this, that the talent that is in NXT, many of them are friends of his, but that the people that are in WWE NXT are developmental wrestlers who would be in dark matches on the shows that he'd be main eventing. Now, here's the thing. I have a problem with that. Now, I know Donovan Dijak, I know he has a different name now in WWE because, God forbid, they just let him keep his real name. Donovan Dijak took issue with that, and he made it clear that he and Walter and he and Keith Lee have stolen the show on independent shows prior to going to WWE all over the country. And they sometimes were paired on the same card, and where Dijak's matches actually outperformed Omega's matches on those particular cards. Now, I wasn't there for any of those. But here's what I have to say to Kenny Omega. I have nothing but mad respect for Kenny Omega. I think he's an incredible talent. Don't get me wrong, one of, if not the best wrestlers in the world. However, when you start looking at who is actually in NXT, yes, WWE, for lack of better terms, uses NXT as a developmental location for many of the talents that they have do not have the kind of experience that a main roster performer has. However, Many of us know, all of us should know, that in the last several years, they have acquired much of that talent. Let's be honest. When you think about the people who are on the NXT rosters, the Adam Coles, the Roderick Strongs, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, those four control all the gold right now in NXT, and they have all been such world travelers, they're not a major organization in the world that they wouldn't main event for. So absolutely they're on par with someone like Kenny Omega. If you took Adam Cole and put him in New Japan today, he could instantly be a challenger for the New Japan Pro Wrestling IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. If you took many other talents, Kushida just came from New Japan Pro Wrestling and was a huge acquisition for WWE. But it's not just them, it's even some of the homegrown talent. Velveteen Dream is one of the best, most innovative characters we've seen in quite some time. All right, Patrick Clark, the guy who was on Tough Enough, has taken this Velveteen Dream character and he has created an entire fan base that is easily going to propel him into main event status sooner probably than later. Matt Riddle is on the NXT brand. Now, I get it. He may be a little green for some people, and obviously his attitude doesn't work for many others. But the reality of the situation is, Matt Riddle is a solid talent. Walter, Keith Lee, Donovan Dijak, all these guys, great in-ring performers. And think about some of the other people who've gone through the NXT brand. The Sami Zayns, the Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, Samoa Joe. Is NXT really the guys who are in dark matches? Absolutely not. Okay? I understand what Kenny Omega is trying to do here. Yes, I'm so happy he got to main event Wrestle Kingdom. That's incredible. And he got to main event Double or Nothing and a huge pay-per-view debut for All Elite Wrestling. But let's be real here. If you added up all the pay-per-view buys for all three All Elite Wrestling shows, and I'm counting All In, and Wrestle Kingdom the last 3 years, those 6 shows combined do not equal one WrestleMania. Now, I understand he wasn't comparing himself to the main roster, but understand this. With NXT going to this live show, they are going to be putting the full court press to make this not a developmental brand, but a legitimate third brand. And here's the big thing. In a weird, kind of strange turn of events, the reality is NXT is going to be migrating away from being a developmental program, becoming a main event program where they're going to have to essentially have a fourth offering, or at least behind the scenes have a fourth tier, so that they can cultivate those new people who are not ready for main event action, who are not ready for a main roster spot, but NXT's popularity is not to be questioned. People have been chanting the letters NXT since the first TakeOver event. Triple H has done everything in his power to essentially do what AEW is doing now. See, that's what I don't think they get. Triple H was the one who thought up NXT. Triple H is the one who thought up the Performance Center. Triple H is the one who has fostered the brand. He's the one who put the girls in the main event for the first time in essentially all of history. He's the guy who has had the vision to make NXT what it is. And now you've got All Elite Wrestling coming along, grabbing a bunch of unsigned talents, and they're all incredible. Don't get me wrong. I don't care who it is. You look at the AEW roster, they're all amazing talent. But don't tell me that Sammy Guevara, for as great as he is, and he is, if you have never seen him wrestle, he is off the chains incredible. However, he's not Finn Balor. He's not Samoa Joe. He's not Kevin Owens. He's not Sami Zayn. He's not probably even Kushida, all of who have gone through or are in NXT right now. Are there some exceptions to the rule? Absolutely. I don't think anybody's going to make the argument that Bo Dallas's career hasn't exactly gone the way many expected it to when he left NXT, being a former NXT World Champion. But that's the exception, not the rule. Even the people who've gone to the main roster, who have been destroyed on the main roster. I'll give you a great example. The Ascension. When in NXT, the Ascension were incredible. They had a following. People loved them. Even the War Raiders now, they have such a following, but they've really been blundered since coming to the main roster. Okay? A Common Razor. AOP, they were incredible on the NXT brand, and they come to the main roster and they get wasted. They absolutely destroyed Sanity. Sanity was another one that people were all about when they were in the NXT, go to the main roster, turn into garbage. So it's not about the talent level. It's certainly not about who would main event. We got to see Sanity and the Undisputed Era and a conglomerate of other mishmashes, Ricochet, Pete Dunne, etc., wrestle in a War Games match, the first legit War Games match since Jim Crockett Promotions. Really, a little bit of WCW, but it was never as good as Jim Crockett Promotions. And it was a main event level match. I don't care what anybody says. NXT brand puts on main event quality matches that are absolutely as good, some of them, as the stuff coming out of Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada. Okay, the Adam Cole and Ricochet and all those guys getting in the ring and mixing it up, they put on every bit as good a match as those New Japan matches, as Ring of Honor matches, as AEW matches. And let's be real, the Lucha Brothers versus Young Bucks was incredible. The Dustin versus Cody Rhodes match was incredible. But other than those two matches, nothing has really lit the world on fire for AEW. Do they have incredible talent? Absolutely. Their roster's stacked. I actually love seeing this week that the Young Bucks were in the news saying how they don't have room for a whole bunch of more people. These people who think that every time a WWE guy gets released, they're going to get signed by AEW. That's not the case. They have a full roster. They have what they wanted. So that's not the case. But the reality is, WWE's roster, no matter which brand it is thoroughly stacked. So this comparison, for all the times I'll support Kenny Omega because I don't think he ever gets the credit he deserves for how much he brings to the business, this was one time I think he was in the wrong. Speaking of New Japan Pro Wrestling, last night, the crowning of their second ever Triple Crown champion. And so you understand what that means from a New Japan perspective. It's not like WWE, where they have the Tag Team Championship, the Intercontinental Championship, the World Championship, or something like that. There, it's the three major singles championships. And I would argue they have an opportunity for a fourth. But last night, Tetsuya Naito loses the IWGP Intercontinental Championship to Jay White, the Switchblade, who has now held the Intercontinental Championship. He held the IWGP United States Championship, and he won the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. What may be most impressive is it was all done in a year's time. And what's even harder to do in New Japan Pro Wrestling is be a Gaijin and a foreign-born superstar and acquire that many championships at that level so quickly. Kudos to Jay White. Congratulations to him. I think he's earned it. Because I think when he was put into a main event spot, he really did a good job of holding his own. Even though there was a few months there where they were booking him in horrible matches, he still held true to his form. He's still a great talent, and he still puts on great matches. So now, IWGP Intercontinental Champion, he'll get a premier match at Wrestle Kingdom. I'm sure Naito will probably get a rematch at some point. The two of them have good chemistry. I can't see that not working. But it does open the opportunity for a whole host of other matches that could take place. Speaking of Walter and some of the other talents in NXT I mentioned earlier, Walter and Imperium have thrown out a challenge for this week's live episode of NXT. Walter, the WWE NXT UK champion, coming to NXT, bringing Fabian Archer and Alexander Wolf with him. They make up the stable Imperium, and they've thrown out an open challenge. Kushida came out and accepted the challenge, and Kushida will pair with partners of his choosing to take on Imperium. Should be a solid match. If I was booking this myself, I don't see any way for Imperium to lose. Then again, when you've got Kushida, who was considered to be a really big acquisition when they signed him, they haven't done a lot with him. Now, I know they've moved the Cruiserweight Championship to really an active part of the 205 of the 205 Live group, I should say, has moved to NXT, and the Cruiserweight title with that to be a part of the NXT brand, which Kushida could easily go for. But now with Leo Rush returning to the company, Leo Rush being crowned the new number one contender to the Cruiserweight title, I don't see Kushida going that route, at least not yet. Maybe down the road against Leo Rush. But you have to wonder what they're doing with Kushida, because let's face it, he's not a spring chicken. This guy's been in the business for a very long time. You got to do something with him if you want to get your investment out of his character, and he's incredible in the ring. He can do anything you ask him to do. So hopefully they do something of substance with him soon. I don't see him challenging Adam Cole. I don't think he's ever going to be on that level in NXT. Not because he's not able to do it. I think he's every bit as talented, but just because WWE has a funky thing about the smaller guys in world championships. They don't like to push that. It's kind of surprising sometimes that Adam Cole's in that role because he's not the biggest guy, but Kushida's even smaller. So we'll have to wait and see how they book him, but it looks like right now Walter and Imperium coming to NXT, and they're going to wreak some havoc this week. Update on Jason Jordan. Jason Jordan has been out of action for a long time. Over a year and a half he's been out of the ring. He hurt his neck, severe issue, tingling down the arms, numbness in the hands, doesn't have great grip strength. We were hoping that by this point he would be able to regain that. I know he got stem cell treatment and all these other procedures to try to make things work, but as of right now, as of this week, the update was that his strength and his grip is just not coming back, and it looks like his in-ring career pretty much is over at such a young age. What I would like to see them do, I know he's been training to be a backstage producer and booker and things like that, and that's incredible, but he really had a great on-screen presence. And so I think if you put him into a managerial role, something where you have to put him on the blacklist. He can't get physical as far as people hitting him. Maybe he could throw a punch here and there just for comedic sense or to get a storyline over. But I would like to see him on television in some capacity. Make him an announcer, whatever it is. The guy has earned the opportunity, certainly through his commitment to the company despite his injury, that he's a company man. Give him some screen time. You know, he's an intelligent guy. All-American wrestler. That's the kind of guy you want to have front and center in your company. Somebody that can be respected. And I just hope the guy finds his path somehow in this business. So sad to see his career come to an end so early. Speaking of him not coming back, someone who is coming back, Finn Balor. It looks as though Finn Balor will be returning. He's already advertised for matches in Australia, and it looks like his return feud will more than likely be against Shinsuke Nakamura for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. That's the matches that are being advertised for down in Melbourne and whatnot. A solid feud from the return, too. I don't have any problem with it. The only issue I have is his last match was against The Fiend, and it's what you just kind of drop that, you know. And I understand The Fiend has moved on to the Universal Championship picture, but maybe you hold him off and don't bring Balor back quite so quickly, and then have him come back as the Demon and go after The Fiend once The Fiend is done with whatever he's doing with Seth Rollins. I love having Seth Rollins as Universal Champion. If I was booking this, I'm telling you right now, it's time. Put the championship on The Fiend, because he's never going to be as popular as he is right now. They've done this before where they've screwed up with a talent when they're way over, and it's cost them potential ratings. You know, when Ryback was hotter than hot. I mean, he was Goldberg white hot at one point, and they didn't put the belt on him. Bad idea. Other wrestlers have come. Dolph Ziggler had his moment where he was the man. The fans wanted him. It's not just him. Zack Ryder, people who you wouldn't necessarily think of main eventers today. Only a few short years ago, the fans were clamoring for them to be in a more primary position, and for whatever reason, WWE drops the ball. Bray Wyatt got the WWE Championship for a short period of time, only to transition the belt to Randy Orton, which was just another way to get the belt on to Jinder Mahal. So they've really dropped the ball, especially with Bray Wyatt's character. This is the time where you can really make him relevant and a focal point of your brand heading into the brand split. I put the Universal title on Bray Wyatt as the Fiend character if I was them, and I would bring Finn Balor back to be his first legitimate threat to that championship. So, moving on. Speaking of NXT talents earlier, Kacy Catanzaro is a topic of debate lately. There was a rumor out there only a couple weeks ago that she was leaving WWE. She had negotiated a release. She hurt her back and was done with wrestling. Ricochet came out the same week and he disputed those reports. He said, listen, you know, injuries are part of the business. Maybe gave her a little shakeup and a scare, but she was definitely staying in the business. She has not been at the Performance Center. She's not there working out. She's not getting training. She's not in the ring. She's not performing at NXT live events. But he keeps insisting she's staying in the business. I don't know if maybe she's taking time off. If she really did jostle her back in a way that's having lingering effects, I don't know. But I do hope she gets a speedy recovery. And I really do hope she comes back to the ring. Because let's be honest, very limited in-ring experience. And when she came out for the Royal Rumble, the Women's Royal Rumble this past year, she was solid. She did very well in the ring. She kind of filled that Kofi Kingston, get thrown out of the ring repeatedly and find a way to get back in the ring role. And she was good at it. And people popped for her because she's got that American Ninja Warrior connection. And she's already over with the crowd. So hopefully they find a way to do that. Want to send out a get well to Tank Abbott. He's in the news this week. He is not doing so well. He has had a series of medical and health issues all year long. Not doing great right now. Tank Abbott, if you're out there, buddy, we're pulling for you. Get better. Former mixed martial artist, WCW wrestler. He had so much of a unique personality. It's almost a shame that people botched it so bad when he went to WCW. I almost think WWE would have been a better fit for him had he gone there first. Instead, never really got back to the MMA ranks the way I'm sure he would have liked to, and now not doing so well. So get well soon, Tank Abbott. Speaking of mixed martial artists, Jack Swagger, the wrestling name Jack Swagger, real name Jake Hager, he has his contract with Bellator, and typically you might see a fighter fight once to twice a year. Hager fought twice already this year, and he's got another fight lined up in October. This guy is on a mission, and his mission is simple. He knows that a lot of people are not going to take him seriously because he's not a mixed martial artist first. He was a pro wrestler first. And he wants to dispel those reservations in people and prove that he's a legitimate fighter. He's fighting again in October. It would not surprise me to see him fight again in December, barring any kind of medical suspension or anything like that. That tends to be very common in mixed martial artists. And if nothing else, I'm sure early in 2020, he'll be back in the cage again. This guy wants to be taken seriously. He's the current Lucha Underground World Champion, even though that brand looks like it may be defunct. They haven't made that official yet, but kind of in limbo at the moment. But at least we'll get to see him in the cage come this October. Few other people we haven't seen lately. Sheamus apparently is cleared medically to come back to the ring. They're waiting on some kind of storyline for WWE Creative to come up with for him to make it sense to bring him back. If I were them, I would hold him off until the draft night, which is coming in the middle of October. Get him out for the draft him to one of the brands, and he's been gone so long, you can push him as a big return, and that's what I would do. I may even keep him out all the way to the Royal Rumble, just because the last couple Rumbles have been kind of garbage when it comes to the surprise entrance. He'd be a nice one to see be one of those surprises. You bring him back early, what is he really going to do of substance before the Rumble? Not a whole lot, probably. Give him a few more months off, let him work on his Celtic Warrior Workouts channel on YouTube, which, by the way, if you haven't checked it out, is incredible, and bring him back when it's going to mean something, have some impact. Put him right into some kind of major angle, and really build him like you did originally. I don't know if anybody remembers, but when he first came into the business, he jumped right to the top of the card, challenging John Cena and winning the World Championship, things like that. That's the kind of character you expect from someone like Sheamus, not the essentially the mid-card, upper mid-card jobber that he turned into in the last couple years. He deserves better than that. And with spinal stenosis, we don't know how much longer he's going to be able to go in the ring. They better maximize their years with him and make him do something meaningful. Another group coming back, the Usos. They've been out since before SummerSlam, mostly because of Jimmy Uso's second DUI arrest in, a 6-7 month period. Hopefully he's got his issues together and they'll be back on television. They can bolster that tag team division. It's something that we really need. WWE, when they're resorting to putting the Raw Tag Team Championships on a tag team that they literally made up a week earlier because they don't have any legit tag teams to challenge, that's a problem when you're the biggest wrestling company in the world. It's time to start really pushing tag team wrestling because it offers a unique perspective on wrestling, different things you can't do in a singles match without breaking the rules, and then people get tired of shady wrestling matches and false finishes. So you need to cultivate tag team wrestling, and the Usos can help make that happen. Speaking of returns, Kylie Ray returned this past weekend. She covered for someone who was not going to appear at a show. Now, what I find weird about this is she was signed to All Elite Wrestling. She was at the last buy-in Battle Royal, and now she's asked for her release from AEW. It was granted by Mr. Khan. He said there's no bad blood. He let her go. She claimed there was a medical situation, but it's been a very short period of time, and suddenly she's back in the ring already. So I question whether or not she legitimately... I'm not saying she didn't have a major injury, but how major could it be if you're back that fast? Now, to her credit, she got a great response from the people. I think that's awesome. Her character is incredible. She's a good in-ring worker. It's just a matter of, I really wish if she was going to come back that quick, AEW would have given her a temporary reprieve and then brought her back when she was ready to go. Unfortunately, that's not the way things turned out. So we'll have to wait and see how they book those things going forward. Got some more well wishes to go out to Hacksaw Jim Duggan. He was hospitalized this week. He's had all sorts of issues. Had to have 2 emergency surgeries this weekend. He's apparently doing much better. His wife posted a picture on Twitter of him in the hospital bed, all bundled up in a blanket, looking actually pretty good. Looked like he slimmed down a bit from the last time I saw him. Get well quickly, Jim Duggan. And last but not least tonight, wedding congratulations go out to Tori Wilson. She got married this week. She is She's off the market, and I thought it was funny that so many wrestling fans, you saw all these messages go out, how jealous they were. That young lady, she's a WWE Hall of Famer. She got a lot of flack earlier this year for not being a legitimate Hall of Famer. She's done everything she's ever been asked to do in the ring, and then she still stays connected to her fans even now. Kudos to her for reaching out, letting everybody know about this great experience in her life. We wish them nothing but wedded bliss and all that nonsense, but good luck for her. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode. We'll run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks as always go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com. They produce all the music and sound effects we use in our shows. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side by using this game. You can get a copy at frowrestling.com. There's an icon in the middle of the page. Click it there to pick up your copy. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. If you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.tsj101sports.com for their latest articles on the world of pro wrestling. Check out my blog, Infro's Corner, at frowrestling.com, and check out my indie events tab for independent wrestling shows coming to an area near you. Get that up close and personal experience and support indie wrestling in a neighborhood near you. Until next time, everybody, take care, have a great night, and we'll see you next time.